So let's just get right into this explainer by confronting a massive, honestly kind of uncomfortable gap in our daily lives. We really pride ourselves on being lifelong learners. We spend hours every single day absorbing new information, trying to better ourselves, and just trying to figure out how the world works. But if we're completely honest with ourselves, we have remarkably little to show for it. There is this sheer canyon between the massive amount of content you consume online and what you actually retain. So today, we're going to look really closely at why your brain seems to immediately discard exactly what you want it to keep, and more importantly, exactly how we can change that. I mean, just think about how much information you've taken in over the last year. We're talking articles, newsletters constantly piling up in your inbox, podcasts you listen to on your commute, or maybe online courses you actually finished. Well, or mostly finished. Then there are those beautiful 40-minute documentary deep dives, or those super long social media threads that felt genuinely mind-opening. When you're sitting there reading or watching, you get this incredible aha moment. You feel your brain expanding. You're interested, you're engaged, and you feel like an absolute expert in that very specific moment.
But let's try something right now. Think back to all that incredibly valuable content you've consumed recently. Can you recall 3 specific things you learned? And I don't just mean a vague impression that, a topic was super interesting or the general theme. I mean an actual idea, a hard fact, or a framework with enough detail that you could confidently explain it to someone sitting right next to you right now.
Yeah. For most of us, that question just creates this incredibly uncomfortable silence. And the wild part is, it is absolutely not for lack of trying. You read, you watch, you listen, you really put in the hours. But then a week goes by, and that feeling of deep, profound understanding is just completely gone. It evaporates. It's incredibly frustrating, right? Knowing you spent 2 hours on a Tuesday learning all about the fall of the Roman Empire or the basics of quantum physics, only to draw a total blank when it actually comes up in conversation. Now, if you're feeling a little guilty right now, honestly, let it go. Take a breath. That memory gap is not a personal failure. You aren't lazy, and your memory isn't broken. This is fundamentally a structural failure. You see, our brains evolved over millions of years to prioritize immediate survival. They definitely did not evolve to drink from a fire hose of perfectly optimized, frictionless digital data. And understanding why this biological mismatch happens, that changes absolutely everything about how you should be approaching learning online. So what's actually happening is we're falling into this biological trap over and over again called the fluency illusion. Basically, this is when we confuse how easy it is to process information with actually knowing and understanding it. When you read an article and the writing just flows beautifully, or a visual explainer has perfect animations that just click in your mind, your brain produces a very convincing signal. It tells you, oh, I understand this, I know this now. Creators intentionally make their work highly produced and fluent to keep you engaged, which accidentally deepens this exact illusion. The smoother information is to process, the more we confuse that familiar, easy feeling with true knowledge. Because familiarity and true knowledge are totally different beasts. It's kind of like the internet is giving us this constant, never-ending multiple choice test. Recognition is cheap. If someone asked you right now if you've ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, you'd probably say yes. You recognize the term, you could pick it out of a lineup. But recall is what actually matters. Recall is a blank page. It's whether you can pull that exact definition back up from scratch without any clues and actually use it to make a point. Almost all online content is perfectly optimized to give you that cheap, unearned feeling of recognition while requiring absolutely zero actual recall. To figure out why this happens biologically, we actually need to look all the way back to the 1880s at this German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus. He ran this rigorous and honestly kind of strange series of experiments entirely on himself to map the exact rate of human forgetting without any interference from things he already knew. He meticulously memorized thousands of nonsense syllables. We're talking meaningless 3-letter combinations like YUX or ZOF. Then he tested how quickly his brain dumped them. And what he found became the famous and somewhat terrifying forgetting curve. So the crucial point Ebbinghaus discovered was that without actively reinforcing it, most new information just vanishes incredibly fast. A massive chunk is lost within the first 24 hours alone. Within a week, more than half of what you worked so hard to learn is completely gone, tossed in the trash. But you really have to realize this isn't a bug in human design, it's an evolutionary feature. Think about it. If our brains kept every trivial detail we encountered, like every single license plate or every random thought on a timeline, we would be completely paralyzed. Your brain is constantly betting on what's worth keeping based on whether you actually use the information again. If you don't use it, your brain's default, ruthless decision is just to dump it so it can keep processing speeds high. So this brings us right back to modern online consumption, which is essentially a broken assembly line for your memory. The modern internet has three specific structural problems that are basically designed to drop information straight into the trash before it can ever be locked into your long-term memory. We're constantly feeding the machine, but the conveyor belt is fundamentally broken. Let's diagnose each of these three structural problems directly so we know exactly what we are up against. Okay, problem number one, passive processing. Think about when you're just endlessly scrolling through an informative thread or letting an educational playlist autoplay while you're folding laundry. Sure, you feel productive, but your brain is essentially sitting on the couch. When you consume like this, you're just receiving information. And durable memory is absolutely not built by receiving, it is built by retrieving. The actual act of pulling something back out of your mind, literally struggling to reconstruct the idea, that is what builds a physical memory trace. Just taking information in with absolutely no output leaves practically nothing behind. Then we have problem number two, which is the total lack of spacing. Most online content is a one-night stand. You consume it once, you feel super smart, and you literally never revisit it again. But think of it like a houseplant. You wouldn't water a houseplant with a year's worth of water in one single afternoon and expect it to survive, right? It would drown. Well, the brain works the exact same way. The spacing effect, which is arguably the most robust finding in all of learning science, shows that memory needs time to rest, sleep, and consolidate before being exposed to the material again. Without spaced repetition, even ideas that felt deeply profound at the time are going to rapidly decay. And the final structural issue is the sheer friction of cognitive overload. The internet doesn't just deliver one nice, neat subject. It delivers an endless, chaotic buffet. You watch a 10-minute explainer about habit formation, immediately scroll to a piece about geopolitics, and then check a newsletter on real estate investing. Each of these wildly different topics is desperately competing for your limited working memory. This constant context switching completely wipes the RAM of your brain clean before anything has a chance to consolidate. It leaves you knowing a tiny bit about a whole lot of things, but genuinely understanding almost nothing. But luckily, learning science doesn't just leave us with the bad news. It provides the antidote. There are three powerful, genuinely evidence-backed pillars we can use to fight back against that forgetting curve. And honestly, the best part? None of these require spending more time online, and they definitely don't require expensive software. They just require a slightly different, more intentional kind of engagement with the content you're already consuming. The first and absolute most important pillar is retrieval practice. And this literally means closing the tab. After you finish a fascinating article or explainer, do not keep scrolling. Close the screen, take 2 minutes, and write down everything you can remember on a blank piece of paper without looking at the source. Now, this is going to feel significantly harder and a lot slower than just reading another paragraph. But that brain sweat you feel, that frustrating struggle to pull the information up, that is the literal feeling of new neural pathways forming. Research clearly shows that this uncomfortable struggle to retrieve dramatically outperforms repeatedly reading a text for long-term retention. The second tool is spaced repetition. You've got to revisit what you've learned at structured, growing intervals. Now, you don't need to be some rigorous academic to pull this off. It is incredibly practical. Sure, you can use flashcard apps, but it can be as simple as a basic calendar habit. Take 30 seconds over your morning coffee to look at the notes you jotted down yesterday. Then look at them again 3 days later, and then a week later. Every single time you force your brain to review the material, you fundamentally push that Ebbinghaus forgetting curve back, flattening it out and making the memory genuinely durable over years, not just days. The third mechanism is the generation effect. This is when you take a complex idea and put it completely into your own words, which encodes it far more deeply into your brain's network. Passive note-taking, like just transcribing what someone else says word for word, does almost nothing for retention. You're basically just acting as a human photocopier. But teaching the concept to a friend, or translating dense jargon into your own simple, everyday vocabulary, that forces your brain to immediately identify the hidden gaps in your understanding. It bridges the new information with what you already know, making the idea stick for months or even years. So here is the honest bottom line summary. The internet is built for engagement. It is not built for encoding. The platforms we use every day aren't necessarily evil. They're just optimized for capturing your attention in the present moment, not for building your intellect for the future. They are extraordinarily good at making information feel accessible, so you genuinely feel like you understand things right then and there. But the solution to this retention crisis isn't to swear off digital media or go live in the woods. The solution is taking personal responsibility for encoding. It's changing exactly what you do in the 60 seconds immediately after you consume something. So I dare you to break the cycle of passive consumption right now. Before you jump to the next tab, the next app, or the next task in your day, I have a specific challenge for you. Pick just one concept we've covered in this explainer. Close your screen, put away all your digital devices, grab a pen, and write down 3 specific facts you actually remember about how memory works, totally in your own words without looking anything up. That single, defiant act of retrieval is literally the most important step you can take today. And look, this isn't just a simple homework assignment. That process, that is literally how human memory works. And if you sit there staring at a blank page and find it much harder than you expected to pull those 3 facts to mind, well, remember that discomfort is information too. If it feels hard, good. That struggle isn't a sign of a bad memory, it's the exact feeling of a real memory finally being built. Your brain is a muscle, and for way too long, you've been watching other people lift the weights. Now it's your turn.